This is the Football Podcast with your hosts, Tyler, Andy, and Boyer.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Podcast, presented by two of your performance-enhancing dads. I don't even know that I have to say that anymore.
It's a good
Andy,
thing there's three of us, or this thing would crash and burn pretty quick.
And Andy's back, Boyer's out. I might just have to take a week off coming up sometime. I don't know. We'll see. I feel like I'm pulling a load here, and we don't need that. Plus, my analysis sucks, so I'm not even sure why they keep me around.
I mean, people enjoy looking at you. You're the face of the franchise, Ty.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. I knew you weren't
Probably
talking
why
about
we have 12 subscribers.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's jump into some trades that happened last week. Like, subscribe, comment, do that thing if you like what we do. Yeah, all right. Jumping into trades. I traded Mahomes for Gibson with Paul.
Yeah, that one was interesting. Walk us through your thinking there. You just thought that Mahomes gave you a leg up. Like, I get it from Paul's standpoint. He had two quarterbacks. He only needed one, and Gibson is depth elsewhere. But you just thought Mahomes was better for keeping your pants on?
Yeah, so Gibson's really not been good this year, and I hate to say
Mahomes has really been up and down.
Yeah, well, and Wentz had Buffalo this week, and I was worried that he was going to put up 7 or 8 like Mahomes, and Mahomes was going to be able to put up more, but actually Wentz outscored Mahomes this week. So,
and then Mahomes is on a bye next week, so you're starting Wentz anyways.
Yeah, but it was more of a matchup, and then Gibson with this whole shin injury and not getting a workload, and Patterson's been getting 5 or 6 touches a game. McKissick's still getting a good 10 to 15 touches a game. Like, Gibson's workload just isn't there, and at this point,
and the offense isn't great anyways.
Right, and I didn't expect Burita to come in and take a third of that workload out of Buffalo, which I expected Zach Moss to put up the same 8 points Gibson was, but right. Mahomes had a much higher ceiling than Wentz.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thought I was making a move to kind of gain some ground there while being able to throw one of the Buffalo Bills backfield members in as my running back 2 and be fine. But that's not looking any better because of Matt Breida coming in. So
yeah, that whole thing's a mess now. So that's a bummer for you, but hopefully Mahomes gets his stuff together coming off the bye. I still believe in the Chiefs offense. So good luck with that.
And Mahomes can put up 30. Wentz isn't doing that. Even on a good week, Wentz is putting up 22 to 24.
For sure.
So I don't know. And I like Wentz, and Wentz has been consistent. I'm not worried about him, but I just thought that was an upgrade at a position, and I'd be able to fill in that running back 2 spot. So.
Yep, I feel you.
And then going on to this next trade, getting rid of another running back out of off my roster, moving Saquon for $7 draft dollars this year, which filled me up to $230, and then $8 draft dollars next year, which put me at $222. So I am $8 shy of being full next year.
Which means that you can't sell next year. What are you going to do, Ty?
So theoretically, part of me is excited getting 2023 draft dollars.
Because then you can buy next year and not be killing yourself.
Because my hope is, even if I can buy $22 worth of players next year.
Buy early, buy often.
If I can do it and somebody starts selling and I can buy in quick, even if I sell $22 worth of draft dollars away for players, I'm breaking even for next year right now.
Fair. That's not a bad spot.
I'm not excited about where I'm at this year, but my team just shit the bed, and I mean, I couldn't get a big week, and when I did, I played the top team, and it just nothing kind of worked out in my favor. And I know my like everybody versus everybody average isn't great. I'm right under 500 on the year, but I had one bad week early on. I had another bad week this last week when I sold off all my players. The week before that, I got rid of Lamb and Tyreek Hill, which both put up big numbers. So had I not sold that number looks a whole lot better all of a sudden. But
sure,
whatever. I'm not worried about that right now. I'm worried about not being naked and getting more money for next year, which is where I'm at. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, I'm going to say this and then I acknowledge that I was in on the bidding. I think 15 for Barkley's a lot right now. I mean, he hasn't been healthy all year. The Giants offense is bad. Granted, they just fired Jason Garrett, so maybe that makes a difference. But at the time, you didn't know that that was coming. And Barkley didn't play last year. When he did play, he was averaging like 2.2 a carry or something like that. Like this guy hasn't been good since 2018. So to get $15 out of a guy just on name value from his rookie season that was 3 years ago is mind-boggling to me. This guy continues to be a first-round draft pick just because he's got huge legs. He's on a bad team. He's consistently hurt, and he still has this value in the fantasy community. I don't get it, but I was in on the bidding. I offered 7 and 6, I think, and wouldn't go higher than, with Ramondre, which I know you like him a bit, but I think you've got other keepers, so that probably wouldn't matter, which is obviously why it didn't move the needle and the extra $2 that you got from Charlie. But like, I wanted to take a shot because there's still a little bit of a window for me to do something here, and even if I fall short of playoffs because I need help getting there, then at least to have a decent consolation team. But it's still just a hope and a prayer because Saquon hasn't done anything. So the value is crazy to me, but saying that, I was in on it. So
yeah, well, and to be honest, Saquon was drafted the 10th running back overall, money wise.
mm-hmm.
So realistically, even if you can keep Saquon as the 10th overall at like $56 when other guys are going for 80 and mid 70s, it's not a bad value if he can bounce back, which I considered keeping him just for that sake.
Sure.
But
he's got to show it to us at some point. Like, it has been a long time since we've seen it.
Yeah, so that's why I was willing to give him up. I said if I can fill up this year and keep pushing into next year, I'll move them.
Sure.
So, but a lot of people were so nervous. So Charlie even told me, he said if Jeremy didn't move for Tyreek Hill with 2023 draft dollars, he would not have been in on 2023 draft dollars because he didn't want to be behind that 8 ball.
Yeah.
With Jeremy being in his, like he didn't want to be the only team in his division selling off in 2023 already.
That makes sense, and that's smart to keep an eye on that.
So, but anyway, let's move on to the next one. Robbie gives Walker, Myles Gaskin, OBJ, and $10 in 2022 for Leonard Fournette and Amari Cooper, with a bunch of conditions here that if he makes the playoffs, wins a round, wins the championship, he gets extra money and all this stuff. He tried to do that with me with Swift doing giving me $6 and trying to up it to like 11 max. And I said, if I can sell Saquon for 15, there's no way I'm going to move Swift for 11 when Swift is producing. But what do you think about this Gaskin, OBJ, and $10 in 2022 for Leonard Fournette and Amari Cooper?
It's a lot. I know that I went on my rant last week about Robbie needing to make a move and how it was a shame that he was sitting on his hands when he had such a big lead and he's just pissing it away. But Fournette and Cooper are Fryer didn't make a move. Fryer didn't necessarily need to make a move. So Robbie didn't have to make a big move here. And we talked about how he's got a light schedule coming up. But between Gaskin and Fournette, I think the edge goes to Fournette, but they're not that different, right? And Amari Cooper is a head and shoulders above what Odell Beckham's going to do on the Rams, I would think. But is it $10 more? It's a lot of draft cash to throw at these two guys. But at least he did something, right? So yep. I think it was a bit steep. If I was going to throw 10, 13, I think if he ends up winning a championship with all these strange conditions, if I was going to throw that much money at somebody, it would have been trying to get Swift off of you. But obviously that would have had to push into the following year money. Or I don't know.
Yeah, right.
There's not a lot out there because Robbie's got Harris, Robbie's got Jacobs. he's got running backs, so it's not like just buying Swift was gonna, it was gonna be a smaller upgrade. So he couldn't have just gone and bought CEH off of Boyer, because then he's just muddying the waters and trying to hope to play matchups there. So doing something like this made sense, but the $10 there, I feel like, is probably a bit more than what these guys were worth. But we've talked about how the inflation was pretty high this year. Guys were going for more than we expected. So maybe it was right, and props for him for going for it.
Yeah, so I would like to say Leonard Fournette is until Rojo mixed in this week, Leonard Fournette had been a consistent floor, at least, where Myles Gaskin was not a great floor, if any sort of floor. So I would say Leonard Fournette's still quite a bit above Gaskin for me, just for the sake of the Bucs score, and that
That's
makes
fair.
a big difference.
Yeah, that's fair. Gaskin's got 92 points on the year, and Fournette's at 108. So,
Right. I'm not saying it's a big difference, but like Gaskin, I think his low weeks are pretty bad. Where Fournette, I feel like he's pretty consistent at that, not even at a high level, but even at that 10 to 15 mark is pretty consistent for Fournette.
Yeah, Gaskin had 2 carries for 3 yards against the Colts in week 4, and 5 carries for 9 yards against the Jags in week 6. I don't know if he got hurt in those games. He didn't miss any games, but those 2 definitely dragging him down. But besides that, 4.5 points is his floor. So obviously 2 games out of 10 is not something you can just hand wave and say, well, it's a 4.5 point floor. But,
but even
he's not terrible.
4.5 points is not a great floor for your running back too.
True. I mean, he's got Harris, he's got Jacobs, so kind of RB3.
At this point, Harris is getting into a timeshare.
He is. I'm excited about that.
Fournette might be getting into a timeshare.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they were trying to keep him fresh, but what do I know?
Yeah, but if they're trying to keep him fresh for the playoffs, that might play out the rest of the season this way if they don't need to kill him.
Fair.
So we'll see. But anyway, I'm not mad about the move. I'm glad Robbie did it. But
yeah,
let's move.
I agree.
Let's move on. So Paul and Charlie flip Elijah Mitchell and Deontay Johnson. I was trying to get Elijah Mitchell off of Charlie for a while with this Barkley trade, and he would not do it. He needed another piece apparently. So he got Deontay Johnson. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it made sense because Charlie picked up Saquon, so Elijah Mitchell became a little bit unnecessary. Charlie had Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, and he's also got Devonta Smith and Corey Davis. So Deontay Johnson, I think, is an upgrade over Smith and Davis. But at the same time, outside of like dealing with bye weeks, he's got Eckler, Henderson, and Barkley covering his running back and flex spots. So I feel like this was just shuffling a bench piece to get a little bit more depth in the spot that he wanted it. Personally, I think I would have rather held on to Mitchell just because of Saquon's issues. But I think it's fine. From Paul's perspective, he's got Debo, Kupp, and Metcalf. So he's also got McCaffrey, and he's handcuffed. He's got Aaron Jones, he's handcuffed, and then he picked up Antonio Gibson. He picked up Elijah Mitchell because he's got McCaffrey and Aaron Jones, and then both of their handcuffs all on bye in week 13. And he doesn't want to lose that matchup because it's a division matchup, and Paul's had issues getting these wins, even though he's one of the better teams in the league. So wanting to make sure that he beats Chris next week is a big deal for him, and having both of his running backs on a bye was something that I know that he was worried about. So picking up Gibson, picking up Elijah Mitchell to cover that makes sense for him when he's got the other 3 receivers that are studs. He was never going to play Deontay except for bye weeks anyways.
Right. Yep. No, I'm good with it. I like Elijah Mitchell.
You're a Niners fan.
Well, but Jeff Wilson's nothing, and Sermon's been nothing, and when he's in, Mitchell's going to be the guy. I mean, there's no way you go around him right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that the trade helps Paul a lot more because of that specific bye week, but because both of these teams are so stacked, this was effectively just shuffling bench pieces around, which kind of is crazy looking at some of the other teams in the league that would love to be starting one of these guys every week.
Right. Like me and my running back too. I wanted Mitchell, but it's not happening. So. All right. So that's it for the trades. Let's jump into last week's picks. How did we do last week, Andy?
Some of us better than others. We all picked Charlie to beat me, and thankfully we were all wrong about that. I was the only one that picked Jeremy to beat Chris. Everybody picked Ty to beat Boyer. I was the only one that picked Paul to beat Fryer, which is surprising. Colin beat the duo. We all called that. And then Boyer was the only one that actually had the cojones to pick Walker over Robbie, even though we all talked about how Robbie's team was definitely in a position to lose that game. Boyer was the only one that put his pick where his mouth was, and he ended up coming out ahead there. So I got 4 right. Ty only had 2, and Boyer had 3. So on the season, Boyer and I are both at 40. Ty's at 34. Ty, you're falling behind.
That seems to be a trend around here. I can't win. I can't win fantasy matchups either, so it's fine.
You just keep trying, bud. We believe in you. You'll get there someday.
I got a championship.
That's all that matters. Ride that forever.
More than some people can say.
That's true.
So let's talk a little bit about these matchups last week that we picked and how a couple decisions could sway the outcome of playoffs, could sway the outcome of naked. Some of these bad decisions that came off.
Yeah, I pulled a few of these out. I'm going to start with Charlie starting Fields. He and I were chatting a bit going into the Monday night game since we were facing each other, and he had Godwin and Saquon and was trying to cover the point spread. I don't remember what it was, but obviously he fell short. And he was like, man, the podcast is going to roast me for starting Fields. And I was like, buddy, like you found out at the last minute that Jackson wasn't going to play. Like they said he was sick, but sick, what does sick mean?
Right.
It wasn't COVID. He had been sick for several days. So, you don't know that it's going to actually be an issue at game time until Sunday morning when they're like, oh, he really might not play. And starting Fields, we talked about the Ravens defense hasn't been that amazing, and Fields has shown flashes. He's shown flashes of not being good too. But I don't think it was a horrible call. It obviously didn't work out, and then he had the bruised ribs and was out. But it was a bummer in terms of the matchup. But the decision making, I don't think was terrible. Decision making that I do think was terrible, and I'm not sure what was going through his head here. Jeremy's philosophy is that we should have reached out beforehand, but I'd rather just bash him for being an idiot because Fryer started Emmanuel Sanders and got 2.6 points out of him, and benched Terry McLaurin, who got 16 points. So for those of you who can count with a few extra fingers, that's a 14-point difference. Fryer lost by 10 points. So everybody in Paul's division should be not happy with Fryer. Fryer could be tied with Robbie here for first place in our division, but he didn't play his best players, which is not usually what you want to do. Boyer also, in a quest to keep his pants on, decided.
Real quick on
go ahead.
On the Fryer thing, Emmanuel Sanders had some good games, but he's not been good the last 4 weeks. So
right, it's not like he was hot.
Right, I get Fryer thinking, all right, maybe the Bills are going to put up big points on Indy, but Indy's defense isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Where McLaurin played Carolina, and Carolina's defense has been good this year, but
they're better against the run.
But the difference is Carolina's offense has been so bad that realistically you should have expected Washington to have the ball a lot. I mean,
that's true.
I don't know. I don't see how you can sit McLaurin, although I understand the thought process of Sanders has had big games. Maybe he was shooting for that high game, but McLaurin is more likely to have that.
Yeah, I agree. McLaurin's the number one, and he's a clear-cut number one in that offense. Like, he'll have the weird game where McKissick has more targets or whatever, but like Terry's the number one receiver in that offense, and he shows that every week. Sanders is very much not. You've got Diggs, you've got Cole Beasley, who occasionally will outperform him. You've got Knox came back, I think. They've got the running backs that they use and mix in there. You've got the fact that Josh Allen will run for touchdowns when they get into the red zone. Like, none of those things are issues with the Redskins. And granted, the offense is at a different level there, but you want the number one option on a bad offense for fantasy. That's fine.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I wanted to throw out the other side of it, but go ahead on to Boyer and his nakedness.
Yeah, so Boyer, I get the decision here. He didn't want to start CEH coming off the injury, especially with having seen Williams been successful. The offense as a whole has struggled since CEH went down, and he ended up getting 13.6 on the bench. And Boyer started Mecole Hardman in his flex, who only got 2.5. And Hardman has not been productive this year. He's got more than 5 catches only once. He's only cracked 70 yards once. He's only got 1 touchdown. Like, I could see thinking that the Dallas game was going to be a shootout. Obviously, that fell well short of expectations, but I'm not hanging my hat on Mecole Hardman in any matchup. So that ended up being a bummer. Boyer lost by 2.5 points, and that was an 11-point swing. So, bummer. Good. Yeah, works out for you, Ty. The other one that I wanted to call out, and I sent a message to the podcast guys because I didn't want to put it in the league chat because I didn't want Charlie to change anything. I thought it was a horrible decision for Charlie to start the Steelers defense against the Chargers when all of their studs were out. Like, their top 3 players on defense were out in this game on Sunday night. The Chargers offense is pretty good. So yes, Tyler.
Also, can you look at Charlie's lineup from last week?
He had all the Chargers.
He had Eckler and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, and I had Herbert and Williams. It was a very productive game for both of us.
But when you're starting Eckler and Allen and you're hoping both of them score or put up 100 yards, probably a tough decision to play the Pittsburgh defense against them.
Yeah, and like, I'm not too against playing a defense that goes against some of my players. Like,
right,
there's sacks and picks, and you get a fluky defensive touchdown or whatever. Like, there's
right.
points to be had there. But this was not the week to do it. I just, like, even if they were healthy, the Steelers defense against the Chargers would be, and in LA too, would be not the best play. And then with all their studs out was just not high on my to-do list. They put up 2 points. Charlie lost by 8, so he would have had to have found somebody on waivers to get 10 plus in order to have won the matchup. But Charlie's also potentially in that wild card conversation, so points matter anywhere you can get them, and I didn't think that was a good decision.
Yeah. So going back to Charlie real quick, I kind of feel bad because I was in the same decision Charlie was in with one of my other leagues. I had Jackson that went out with a sickness. I was between Kirk Cousins against Green Bay, Jimmy Garoppolo, which I just don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo, or Justin Fields, and I actually picked Justin Fields as well. So I think
we mentioned it last week that the Green Bay defense has been really strong. I wouldn't have played Cousins, and Cousins was by far the most productive out of any of these guys on the waivers. So, but I wouldn't have done it.
No, but I think half the reason Fields was injured is because I picked him up. So
yeah, well, you'll have to apologize to Charlie personally then.
I just assume everybody that I have is injured. So
yeah,
I should have given you more warning.
Yeah, that's all I got for looking at stuff from last week. I think we'll try to call out some of these things as more of these matchups come to be important in the standings as far as wild card and keeping pants on and all of that. So we'll keep looking at that.
Yeah, we like to tell you guys when you're wrong, especially after the fact.
Truth.
So All right, let's jump into matchups for this week, and then we'll kind of run through where everybody's at, if people are still in the playoff hunt, kind of where we see wild card playing out, and go from there.
Sounds good.
So we'll jump right into Andy versus Duo for this week.
Yeah, Duo's got some bye week issues. They've got Williams for Kansas City on a bye, which CEH is back, so you can't be too excited about that. Then they've got Ertz and Butker on a bye, so they need to pick up a tight end. They need to pick up a kicker. They need to pick up a running back. So they're going to have to find guys to drop to do that, which is tricky with some of the guys that are stashing on their bench.
Well, you could probably drop Harris off of New Orleans at this point.
Yeah.
And you got Sutton and Van Jefferson on the bench. They're going to do just as much as Harris is going to do.
Yeah, I would think so. And you could probably drop Robert Woods. I don't think that he's got a ton of keeper value, especially coming off a major injury.
Right.
So, but they do what they want. We'll see what ends up happening. But not the strongest week for them. They got to sort some stuff out.
Right. So, I mean, you have CeeDee Lamb. That's a question mark this week, but I don't think it's even going to matter. So.
No, I've got Mike Williams, Elijah Moore, Chase Claypool, which I would love to start Lamb over any of those guys, but I have options that can cover me. So.
Yeah, and at this point, playing the Duo where they're at, I think you're fine.
Yeah. Ty, who you got in this one?
Yep, you.
Me too, and so does Boyer. We got his picks beforehand, so
I'm gonna have to pick a couple of different ones here just to change things up. But
that's fair.
I don't know. I can't do it in that one. So we'll jump to Jeremy versus Boyer here. Once again, another matchup that probably doesn't need a whole lot going to it. Jeremy's a playoff contender. Boyer's a naked contender. Jeremy, at this point is banking, Kyler Murray's on a bye, but he's banking on Murray coming back after that because he's playing Trevor Lawrence right now. He's got Trey Lance, but that's not coming through at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But so he's got Tyreek Hill on a bye. He's got Kyler Murray on a bye. So really at this point, he's just got to fill in his flex. But he should be fine. Boyer, on the other hand, CEH is on a bye. Michael Carter's injured. His boy, Mecole Hardman, is on a bye, so we can't start him this week. You really got nobody on that bench that's playable because Allen Robinson is also questionable right now.
Yeah.
So I guess he's rolling with what he's got. So what do you think on this matchup?
It's got to go Jeremy.
Okay, I agree, and I believe Boyer has the same.
He sure does.
So let's go to Chris versus Fryer. This one has a little bit more playoff implication to it. Should be a little bit closer than these first two.
Yeah, for sure. I will be very interested to see who Chris starts between Dak and Jalen Hurts. One of the decisions we didn't touch on was that Chris started Dak against Kansas City instead of Jalen Hurts, and that cost him quite a bit of points. I don't think it would have covered enough to catch Jeremy last week, but points matter in that wild card contention, which Chris is in the thick of at the moment. So, I would have played Dak against the Kansas City defense, which has been pretty bad, expecting a shootout. But that one sucks. So it'll be interesting to see what he does this week. If he trusts the legs of Jalen Hurts for a high floor, or if you want Dak Prescott in the Thanksgiving game to go off.
And if you look at it, Dak's got Las Vegas, and Las Vegas has been bad.
Yeah.
And then Hurts has the Giants, and the Giants have not been great. So really, both matchups you can look at and say, yeah, they're both startable, and they both have good matchups. So I don't know. I think I'm probably still sticking with Dak, although, Hurts has been a top quarterback more than anybody else at this point.
Yeah.
Just he runs touchdowns left and right, but
Right.
Somebody's going to stop that, right?
Maybe. I don't know that it's going to be the Giants.
You're right. His other big question. Oh, he does have Derek Carr on the bench too. Should he do that?
I don't think so. I think you could probably drop that guy.
His only other big question is Alvin Kamara at this point. I mean, he's got Alex Collins too, but you're not starting him over Robinson. I mean, even Gordon at this point, I'm probably still playing over Alex Collins in that terrible Seattle offense. But you could at least bring that to question.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing it.
Right. So at this point, it's pretty much Kamara or sitting with where he's at. So.
Yep. And it sounds like Kamara hasn't been practicing, so that's not great news for him.
Right. And then looking over at Fryer, he really doesn't have anything on his bench at this point.
No, so he's got a solid starting lineup, and James Conner's on a bye, which hurts. But he's got good old Emmanuel Sanders. Now he has to play Terry McLaurin this week, so see what happens there.
Well, I know Jeff Wilson didn't have a good game last week. If Mitchell is out again, would you consider Mitchell at all against Minnesota, or are you just starting Emmanuel Sanders and hoping for the best with that?
If Mitchell's out, I think I'd roll with Jeff Wilson. He had 19 carries last week against Jacksonville. He only ended up getting 50 yards on those carries, which is not ideal, but volume's volume. And I think that I would take that out of him instead of 3 catches out of Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders' ceiling may be higher, but I think if Jeff Wilson is the number one going this week with Mitchell being out, I would go with the running back floor and just hope for the best. This matchup's close enough. I don't think you need that ceiling out of Sanders if everybody else can come through.
Yeah.
I mean, you're banking on the Brady and Evans and the McLaurin and the Cook and Montgomery. You're not banking on this flex spot at this point.
Right.
So we'll see. But this matchup is close. Who you got on this one?
This one is tough. These teams are so different. This is a tight one. I will start by saying I will be cheering against Fryer in this one. Although if Fryer wins, Chris losing might help me for wild card, but I'm still hoping that I keep winning games and at least I'm in the thick of it here at the end of the season. So either way, one of these teams loses and that helps me catch somebody. So I think
you're right.
This is tough. It's tough because I hate Fryer's flex, but Fryer's got Kittle over Hawkinson, which is a big advantage there.
Montgomery over Gordon should be an advantage too, especially Montgomery playing Detroit.
Yeah, and I really like Terry against the Seahawks defense. I think I got to pick Fryer.
Damn it! I was really hoping you were gonna pick Chris so I could pick Fryer here. All right.
Boyer picked Fryer too. If anybody is curious,
I'm picking Chris.
Just to be different.
This is my game to make one up. Chris, go ahead and make the middle division proud. Beat up on Fryer. I don't know. I got to make up a game. Chris, I probably just jinxed you, so I apologize.
Sorry, all your players are hurt now.
That's kind of been my MO is I picked the wrong team. So maybe you can be one of the two of the 6 that I get right. Andy, you got any drink with you tonight? Or
I'm drinking just water. And I'm at the in-laws' house. I'm in their office because everybody in the house is asleep and they don't have basements out in North Carolina like I do at home. And there's no table for me to put this on, so it's on the floor. And I'm already earthquaking every time I shift in my seat with my laptop on my lap. So I don't want to be bending over picking this thing up. So water, but not really drinking much.
All right, fine. Well, I'm drinking a little Action Hero from Revolution, hazy IPA. It's actually not as good as I expected it to be.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Oh well. I bought the IPA variety pack, the All Heroes pack or whatever.
Sure.
We'll see how the rest of them go.
Well, good luck to that. And I imagine that Boyer's drinking NyQuil.
Yeah. I think he's sleeping at this point. Hopefully.
Probably.
This dude's immune system's so bad he can't stay healthy. Dude's been fighting a sinus infection and a throat issue and whatever he's been fighting for like 2 months and he just can't figure it out.
His immune system's so bad, Ty tried to draft him in fantasy.
You might not be wrong.
His knees are that bad too.
Yeah, shit, you got me. I was gonna say. So all right, let's jump into my matchup this week versus the top guy in his division, Robbie.
Yeah. So Ty has Mahomes on a bye, which is a bummer for him. You got the Buffalo backfield clusterfuck with Moss and Singletary. And yeah, I mean, in terms of lineup decisions, I don't think you're probably not putting Bateman in over Higgins or Pittman.
I considered it over Higgins at this point, man. Dude, that dude's killing me.
Yeah, I guess you can.
I expected him to be better, but I still trust Cincinnati's pass game over Baltimore's pass game.
Yeah, and Cleveland and Baltimore can put on a fireworks show. Those guys can run up the score.
Yeah, well, and playing Pittsburgh, that's not a bad defense, and then Bateman's playing Cleveland, which isn't a bad defense either. So
yeah,
whatever. I got Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, you could try that.
Probably not, but
I don't know that I would.
No.
Yahoo projecting Kenny Galladay for 8 points is mind-boggling, considering he's topped that once this year.
Right.
But yeah, Ty, you got to hope that Wentz and Pittman go off against Tampa's D. But we'll see what happens there.
I mean, let's look at the other side real quick.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the lineup decision. Burrow against Pittsburgh, who just got torched by Justin Herbert, or Russell Wilson against anybody right now because Russell Wilson sucks.
Man, I know Russell Wilson's been consistent. I know that he's still a good quarterback. I just don't know what the hell is happening right now.
I mean,
get
Seattle's been bad, right?
Yeah, right. And Wilson's getting older. He's coming off the injury. There's a lot of things happening there, but like, man, he needs to get out of Seattle.
Yeah, and like Seattle's still got Metcalf. Metcalf's a good receiver. Lockett's good. Not having Chris Carson changes things a little bit, but they've been dealing with that for off and on for the last 2 seasons. But I mean, getting pins put in and taken out of your freaking finger cannot be good for trying to go do your job holding the football.
Right. So
I'm playing Burrow.
I hope Burrow does well because I hope Higgins does well, but I think I'm going to ride with Wilson one more week and just see what the hell happens. Washington's pass defense isn't that great. I mean,
that's true.
So I don't know. I think I'm going to sit on Wilson and just pray for one more week. And if it doesn't work, then at that point, you pretty much got to put Wilson on your bench and ride Burrow.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm giving Wilson one more week before I give up on him here. So
that's fair. And then Robbie's got Mooney is questionable. He was limited in practice today. He's probably going to play, but it's one of those things that you worry about him aggravating. But in terms of bench options, you're probably not benching him for Laviska at this point. Laviska's not doing anything. Cooper's on the COVID list still, and those are your options unless you pick somebody up. So.
And Adrian Peterson got waived. You could probably get rid of him at this point too.
Yep, saw that. So Jacobs, Fournette, Damian Harris.
Or just pick up another Tennessee running back and sit on 3 of them that are,
couldn't hurt. I think I'm keeping Higbee in over Conklin, but you're not excited about either of those guys. So that's.
I'm with you. San Francisco's middle linebacking core is pretty good. Like stick in the middle is pretty good. They do give up some deep balls, but that's not Conklin.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. I'm going to play Higbee, but I'm not excited about it.
Fair.
What do you got for the winner here?
I gotta go with Robbie. I would feel a lot better about this matchup if you had Mahomes going this week, Ty. I think that Wentz and Pittman could do something exciting against the Bucks defense, but last week I thought that Robbie and Walker's matchup was going to be real close. This week I think he's got a little bit more of an edge against you than he did last week against Walker, so I feel better about picking Robbie.
That's fine. So I think San Francisco could shut down Thielen. I don't know that they're going to be able to shut down Jefferson. Darnell Mooney, he's literally the only thing, but they play Detroit, so that's probably fine.
Sure.
Damien Harris, I think it all comes down to that workload mix. I mean, he had 15 carries, was out, and then had 10 carries. So I mean, he's not been getting huge volume lately.
That's true. Damien Harris splitting carries, and Yahoo's dropped his points projection to kind of reflect that, but splitting carries with Ramondre is a big deal there.
And then even then, we talked about Fournette earlier, and he had 8, 11, and 10 carries the last handful of games. You know, like I think they're going to try to rest him as much as possible till they get to the playoffs. So I think we may see more Ronald Jones, like I said. So I'm not huge on Fournette this week.
Yeah, that's fair.
We talked about Higbee not being great. Jacobs could be fine. I like Jacobs still, but the Buffalo defense and kicker could carry him to win, and I'm going to be pissed if that happens because last week they went for -3 points together, I think.
Yeah, and the Saints offense has been rolling these last 4 games or so, so that might could happen again. Buffalo's defense is good, so I'm not going to say it will, but they didn't look great last week, and New Orleans is a solid team, so we'll see.
And I'm not saying anything bad about a lot of these players because I have Harris in another couple leagues. I have Thielen. You know,
Sure.
I have some of these guys, and I hope they do well.
Yeah,
Except
it's all
for this
matchups.
week.
And looking at your stuff, Swift had his second worst game of the year against the Bears a few weeks ago, and Zach Moss is in a 3-way timeshare right now. So, you know, you've got your own set of issues over here.
Oh, for sure. And Higgins hasn't been great. Gesicki goosed me. Has gotten 5 goose and 5. So I mean, who the heck knows what's coming out of him this week? So I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. I got plenty of issues, but I'm going to go ahead and pick myself to get the win here. I think I don't think that it's a blowout either way.
Sure.
But I don't like some of Robbie's matchups, and I'm going to go ahead and pray that I get a win this week.
Yeah, I don't think Robbie's team has a lot of explosiveness on it right now. You know, he's going to be happy to crack 110 points if he can get it. But I don't know. You've got a few players that could have those big games. You've got Swift, you've got Pittman, you've got even Gesicki could have a big game. Moss could get 2 touchdowns randomly. Like I feel like you have some more of that like big game stuff on your side than Robbie does. But this is a whole bag of issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Boyer also picked you, so.
Well, that's probably why I picked me. Me and Boyer picked the same person. So
that sounds right. You guys always do.
That matchup's a mess anyway. So, all right, let's move on to Colin versus Charlie. This one is a lot more exciting than that last shit show that we just covered.
Truth.
So, looking at it, Lamar Jackson will be back for Charlie this week, I assume.
I can't imagine he's going to be sick for a week and a half straight.
Right. But otherwise, he's got Allen and Godwin. You're not sitting either of them. Eckler and Henderson. You're not sitting either of them for anybody on his bench at this point. You got Knox because Kelsey's on a bye.
Mm-hmm.
And then Barkley. I mean, you're not going to sit Barkley for a Devonta Smith, for a Deontay Johnson, for a Corey Davis. I mean, I think you've got to play Barkley still.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could try to talk me into Deontay Johnson over Barkley, but I think you want Saquon.
If you sit Saquon and he goes for 15 or 20, you're going to be pissed.
Right.
Where Deontay, you kind of know what you're getting. So I think you play Barkley for that upside, especially against Colin.
Right.
So, but he doesn't have a whole lot of lineup decisions here. So
yeah, if anybody on the Giants offense is going to score, it's going to be Saquon. So you got to feel good about that. the same way that you have to start Terry McLaurin every week because he is the Washington offense. You got to start Saquon when he's playing.
And it's not even that Saquon looked bad. The whole Giants offense looked bad, but Saquon was cutting. He was going out for passes. It didn't look like he was hampered at all by his injury. So
right,
they got to give him the ball and let him work. So we'll see. Going over to Collins' side, Patterson coming back against Jacksonville, maybe. But over Ayuk's in the flex right now. Hollywood Brown is in the wide receiver 2 slot. But everything seems like that's coming back fine. If Hollywood's not back, you're playing Waddle most likely there. Are you playing Waddle or are you against Carolina? Are you playing Ayuk against Minnesota?
That's tough because
Ayuk got a lot of extra looks because Debo was running out of the backfield some too.
Yeah, and Ayuk 2 of the last 3 weeks has had 80 and a touchdown. So he's had 7 or more targets in 3 of the last 4 too. So I mean, he's coming on. Whatever doghouse he was in seems to have finally been he's out of the doghouse. So, but Collins got so many freaking options because if Patterson comes back, Lord help me, you got to play him, right?
I guess, yeah.
Because what else is Atlanta doing? And Patterson scores every week and also gets 100 yards because, sure, why wouldn't he? I think Waddle's the one that I'm least confident in, but his volume is there. He's only got 3 touchdowns, and he's gonna get you probably 60 yards. Like he's just gonna go out and catch 12 balls. He's not gonna catch 12 balls, but you know what I mean. It's just gonna be low efficiency but high volume, and it's just a floor play. Marquise Brown and
I hear Colin likes that little floor play though.
I bet he does. Patterson and Brown's injuries are going to help make up his mind on some of this, but at least he has good options. So I don't have any strong inkling which way he should go, but he should feel pretty good about whoever he ends up having to play.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I like his lineup. I like his depth. And once you get Hopkins back, it's going to be even better. So
right,
we'll see. What do you got on this matchup?
So obviously, Taylor and Najee at running back is one hell of a duo. The wild card here is Stafford against Green Bay. Cousins last week had 341 passing yards and 3 touchdowns against Green Bay, put up 25 fantasy points. The 3 previous quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, to play the Packers, did not combine for 25 fantasy points. So what Packers defense are we getting, right? Is it the one that's letting Kirk Cousins look better than Murray and Mahomes and Wilson combined? Or is it the one that's been mostly shutting down quarterbacks all year?
It's going to be cold up in Green Bay this weekend too.
Yeah, and Stafford plays in LA, has played in a dome. Maybe that matters. I mean, he's from the NFC North, so he's played plenty of cold games in his career, but that is the wild card. I think that Baltimore Cleveland could be a big shootout. It's I like both of these teams.
For sure.
I'm gonna go. Fuck, man.
I'm gonna take Colin in this one, even though I'm not sure what he's gonna do with that wide receiver 2 flex.
Mm-hmm.
But because of his depth, I think he'll be okay. I think that Stafford Henderson, I think, is going to be a big thing because if they run the ball a lot and Henderson gets it, Charlie wins this one. But I think they go out throwing. I think Stafford has a solid game, and I think Colin's going to win this one.
I think I'm going to go with Charlie. I'm picking Eckler to have a big game against Denver. Denver's gotten gashed a few times on the ground. Najee put up 20, Kenyon Drake put up 19, Dernis Johnson put up 22. They've bottled up a few guys. Antonio Gibson only had 5 points against them, and James
He had
Robinson
5
only had
points
6
against
points.
everybody.
Right. Zeke only had 51 yards on the ground. So the Denver defense has really been hit and miss. But if you're going to beat them, I think beating them on the ground is the way to do it. And Eckler looks good. Charlie talked about go get your guy. Eckler is definitely one of those guys who is a fantasy stud this year. So I'm going slight edge to Charlie here and hanging my hat on Austin Eckler as the difference maker.
And Taylor's got Tampa Bay, which is going to be one of his tougher matchups. Granted,
True.
Everybody said the Buffalo is going to be a tough matchup too, and he made that look easy. So
Apparently 50 fantasy points. So Boyer picked Colin in this one, so I'll be the different one here. Good for you, Ty, for picking different from Boyer.
yeah. I tried. I don't know. I got my division just winning here. So all right, Paul versus Walker.
Paul.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about it.
I mean, listen. Are there any lineup decisions to be had just out of points mostly for Paul?
True.
Because
Paul's
Paul
team
could
is
be
stacked
looking
as
a
hell.
wild card.
Yeah. I mean, AJ Dillon against the Rams, DK Metcalf against the Washington defense, or Antonio Gibson against Seattle. Elijah Mitchell, if he's healthy, against Minnesota. Minnesota's run defense is I don't know. You're not benching Debo, you're not benching Kupp, you're not benching McCaffrey. So Dallas Goedert or Robert Gronkowski. I feel like I'd probably lean Goddard there just for the volume. But maybe you want to swing for the fences and hope for a couple of touchdowns out of Gronk and get your points that way. I don't know.
I think I'd actually almost lean Gronk just for the sake of Hurts does not look good as a passer. Dude, that dude gets all the work on the ground, and I've said it every week, and I just don't like the Eagles, except for Hurts just keeps running the ball.
Yeah.
So I would almost go with Gronk if, assuming nothing pops up with his health, because it's a week-to-week thing with him, just because he could be like, oh, my back's acting up, I'm not going to be able to play this week.
Yeah, that's true.
But if Antonio Brown's still out, and I mean, yeah, they still got Evans, they still got Godwin, but Brady throws to Gronk. I mean, he just does.
Gronk had 8 targets last week coming off of that injury that he missed 5 weeks or whatever it was, and he didn't even score, but he still got the volume, which is not what I expect out of him. I expect 4 targets and a touchdown. Right. So 8 targets is good to see. So I think leave Gronk in is fine. Metcalf against the Washington defense. Washington's pass defense is bad. We've talked about that a couple times. Right. Metcalf has averaged like 34 yards a week over the last 3 weeks, but he's also got 8 touchdowns on the year. So are you looking at somebody like Gibson or Mitchell and going for a guy who's going to get 10 or 15 touches on the ground, but might not do anything with them?
Or DK could go for 40 and a touchdown right away on one play.
Yeah, and I mean, Gibson is going up against the Seattle defense that has been awful. Third most against running backs. They gave up 41 points to Derrick Henry. They gave up a big game to Alexander Mattison when Cook was out. Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel combined put up 26 points on him. Najee had 18. Kamara had 24. AJ Dillon had 24. James Conner had 16. Like, Seattle gives up points on the ground. So
my big problem is Gibson's just not the sole back there.
Yeah, that's true.
If you could tell me Gibson was going to get 15 to 20 touches this week and could guarantee me that, which he's been pretty consistent in that like 10 to 14 range for the most part. He's gotten a couple weeks over that.
Mhm.
He's had a couple games with 24, 2019, like in that range, but for the most part, he's going between that 8 and 14 range. Like if you could promise me he'd get to that close to that 20 mark, I'd start Gibson in a heartbeat. But I don't know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, what I like is that Gibson had 24 touches in week 10 and or carries, 19 carries in week 11. So coming out of the bye, he has gotten the volume. If you get the volume against Seattle, you're gonna get production. Like their run defense is bad. So I want to get Gibson in the lineup somewhere. I think that I would start Gibson over AJ Dillon. Obviously, you can't do it over McCaffrey, and you're not putting Metcalf over Cup or Samuel, I think, at this point. So it's a matter of AJ Dillon or DK Metcalf. I want to roll the dice on a big game from Metcalf against the Washington defense. So if it's my team, I'm putting Gibson in over Dillon because I like that matchup.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to it.
At the end of the day, though, he's playing Walker, and it doesn't matter. I got Paul.
Right. But it does matter for points. I mean,
True.
he's going to win the matchup. But if it comes down to wild card, if Gibson puts up 20 or 25 fantasy points because he just torches Seattle, and AJ Dillon puts up 10, I mean, that extra 15 points could make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, and as much as we keep talking about how great Paul's team is and how good it has been, even though it hasn't been winning, he does not have as many points as Colin, which both of those guys are one game up on Chris for winning the division, but three straight division games, anything could happen there. Paul is 13 points ahead of Charlie, and he's only 18 points ahead of me. He's 2 games ahead of me. He's 1 game ahead of Charlie. So obviously things can happen there, but he's got a sizable lead over Charlie and or over Chris and Fryer, depending on who ends up tied with who at the end of the season if it comes down to wild card. But Colin's got him in points, and Charlie and I are both close, depending on how that shakes out. So points do matter for Paul. He does not have a comfortable lead there.
Right. And that's the only reason I'm saying it is because, of course, he's going to beat Walker this week. We all have him beating Walker this week. Walker's already won 3 more games than we expected him to. So good work, Walker. Props there. But this is not going to be one of those games you luck into a win.
Yeah, not this week.
So, you want to touch on OBJ starting this week, or are you leaving him on the bench? He's got Renfro, he's got Anderson, he's got Hunter Henry in his flex. That's just what we're looking at. It's not pretty anywhere.
Yeah, so Yahoo's projecting Odell Beckham Jr. for 10 points this week against a Green Bay secondary. That's pretty good. What? Yahoo's projections are terrible.
They've got him for 10 points next week against Jacksonville at home as well.
Yeah, which
explain that to me.
Why would they be the same? Like at the very least, you have to be different there because those are 2 very different scenarios. But I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is that great. So it's whatever. Yeah. If you want to shoot for the stars, put him in over Hunter Henry. Sure, why not?
I mean, you could if Antonio Brown's back, he's playing. You could play Odell. You could shoot for the stars with the 2 of them and just pray that something goes right.
Yeah, and Robbie Anderson's another shoot for the stars guy. I mean, he's going to get some deep looks. He has not done anything with deep looks except for his 57-yard touchdown in week 1, which was his only catch that week. So
right,
that's been his most productive game. 1 catch for 57 yards and a touchdown. So that's a very risky shoot for the stars, but you never know when he could bust 4 catches for 130 and 2 touchdowns.
Right. So, all right. Paul wins this one. We all agree.
Yep.
You want to run through it quick? I mean, you kind of did. Do you want to touch anything else on playoff scenarios there?
I want to talk through my path to playoffs real quick, mostly because I keep telling Katie about it and she doesn't want to listen. So I'm going to make you guys listen instead. So if I win out, that means I beat Fryer and I beat Robbie. If Robbie and Fryer both lose this week, which is possible. Tyler was the only one of us to pick that. But it is possible. If I win out and if Fryer and Robbie both lose this week, then the only thing left that I need to happen besides those things is for Fryer to beat Robbie in their head-to-head matchup, which is definitely doable looking at both of their teams. My biggest hurdle in winning out is week 13 against Fryer. I've got Chunt on a bye. So I've got Javonte and Ramondre as my running backs, which I don't know if you're familiar with Javonte and Ramondre, but it's not a law firm. Those are, in fact, backup running backs in the NFL.
Well, they're timeshare guys. Let's not call them backups.
Well, 1Bs.
They at least touch the field.
True. They're 1Bs. They're not handcuffs, but they're not who I want as my running backs in a key matchup against Fryer. So I'm going to need help that week. And Dalvin Cook gets Detroit, which Dalvin Cook always torches Detroit. The Buccaneers get Atlanta that week. So Fryer's team's primed to kick my ass that week. I'm gonna need help somewhere to win out. But if I win out, there are some scenarios where I make playoffs, and I'm keeping a close eye on it.
And Andy never gives up. So here he is, still trying to buy and still trying to move until the very end. So.
Yeah, real quick complaint. Yahoo reminded me that my all versus all this season is 74 and 47. So it makes sense that I'm under 500, right?
Yeah, right.
What are you going to do?
I mean, like I said, my all versus all at some point was high until I sold off, and now I've looked like shit the last 3 weeks, but whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't win again. I couldn't buy a win to start. So I feel you.
Right. Honestly, I'm sad that I sold Kelsey. If I had known that I could get the $8 out of Hutchinson that I got from Chris, I would have just done that and sat right at 200 or close to it and kept Kelsey and been very happy with that. My team just feels a lot less competitive without him. I still believe in my team. I'm still waiting for that Javonte breakout. My Chargers showed out this week. Chubb looks good. So all the pieces are there, but it's just not going to happen for me. But I'm going to keep talking about it until I'm out. So look forward to that. I know everybody's super invested in me winning another championship.
We're all super invested in you getting as low as you can just so we can say that you suck one year.
Yeah, I know. Don't get used to it.
Yeah. Boyer duo, myself and Walker all eliminated. Everybody else is in contention. Andy's almost eliminated. But other than that, it's super competitive on the top half. Pretty much everybody else, 6 and 5, 7 and 4. So good luck to all you guys going forward. For all of my division that gets to play me in the coming weeks, you lucky son of a bitch.
By the way, I need you and Boyer both to win as many games as possible. Boyer, don't beat me, please. Because if Boyer can steal a win against Robbie or Fryer, that'd be a real big win for me. And if you
I can steal a win against one or two of my division, it makes a big difference in wild card.
Yeah, because they're all going to cannibalize each other because they have to play each other. So that's big for me.
Right.
But if you're an easy win, then that's not as good. But
I mean, I like my team still. I traded to try to stay competitive, but
yeah,
we'll see. I don't expect to beat anybody else in my division, though.
Right. So. I mean, I know I talked through my path to winning my division, but depending on what happens in division games, you know, I've got the points to contend for wild card too. I've got a lot of people to pass there though for that. But right. I'm only one game behind most of those guys except for Paul. But Paul has to play Chris and Colin. So if Colin wins out or if Paul wins out and the other guys split, then that could be
best case scenario.
Yeah, worst case scenario is that everybody wins, you know, one game and everybody stays, a few wins up. If Colin beats Paul and loses to Chris, and everybody goes 1-1 in those games, then that's a bummer. 2-1 because they get to beat you. You're on mute, buddy. Ty, you're on mute.
Sorry, the commissioner was calling me. He must have taken my audio away. So there's not a whole lot else to talk about for playoffs and wild card though, because everybody's
so much up in the air. Yeah.
There's anybody really. There's 4 games left at this point, and anybody could take that. So
for sure,
we'll see what happens the next couple weeks, and then we'll kind of see how playoffs are looking come the last couple weeks with division matchups.
Yeah, Fryer and Chris, Colin and Charlie are the big ones this week. Charlie cannot afford another loss, especially with Jeremy getting to play Boyer this week. That would be rough for him to be 2 games down going into division matchups.
Since they both get to play Walker and Duo.
Right, and Charlie could be competitive in wild card, but coming into wild card at 6-6 is not a spot you want to be. That's potentially where I'm coming at it from.
Right.
So, and we all know that I need a lot of help to get there. So if that's where Charlie's at, that's not where he wants to be.
And that looks real bad on our prediction for Charlie winning the championship.
I mean, Charlie's got a good team, but there's 7 good teams in the league right now. Like, It's tough. I mean, I'm sorry, there's 6 good teams in the league, and Robbie happens to have a lot of wins.
All right, let's wrap it up. For all you guys competing still, good work. For Boyer at 3-8, you better pray for a win, otherwise you're naked. I hear you're already getting prepped for those with the sickness and stuff. You're just throwing up and
he's trying to get his weight down,
skinnying up some more than you already are. Other than that, I got nothing. Other than Robbie, you know how it works. No, you don't, because you don't watch. But anyway, you suck. I'm going to beat you this week. And I don't care about the rest of you. Win, lose, tie, do your thing. We'll see you guys next week.